For those who don't know me, I'm Yudi, or well, it's Yudithia, but nobody can really say that, so Yudi works. So how many of us are students or have been students in the past? We've all had to study for something, right? We've all been students, right? Okay. So um, these are the most common ways of learning. There's rereading, underlining, block practice, mass practice or cramming, and passive reading. Sorry, I'm so nervous. Could you raise your hand? Raise your hand for the one that you think is the most effective. I'm sorry. So if you think that rereading is the most effective, please raise your hand. Okay. If you think underlining is the most effective, please raise your hand. Okay. If you think blocked practice is the most effective. If you think cramming is the most effective. If you think passive reading is the most effective. Okay. Well, guess what, guys? None of those are effective ways of learning. According to Make It Stick, very good book, definitely recommend. According to Make It Stick, page 3, says, learning is deeper and more durable when it is effortful. Learning that is easy is like writing in sand, here today and gone tomorrow. These are actual effective ways of learning. Retrieval practice or testing, which is what we're going to focus on today. Space practice, interleaving or alternating, like, whenever you read one subject and then you go to the next. Okay. And then an elaboration. We like to bounce off of each other. According to Pooja Agarwal, by far the most effective way to learn is to use retrieval practice. Yes. Retrieval practice is a learning strategy where we focus on getting information out through the active retrieval or calling information to mind. Our memory for that information is strengthened and forgetting is less likely to occur. Retrieval practice doesn't just lead to memorization. It increases understanding because students have a better understanding of classroom material by having practice using the information. Students can adapt their knowledge to new situations, novel questions, and related contexts. I want to show you guys these graphs. So as you can see, that the darker color is, this study shows that the darker color, students were told to study for, I think it was like 30 minutes, and then study again, and then they were told to take a test. And that was their average, was like an 80, I guess. And then another group of students were told to study, then take a pre-test, and then take the actual test. And as you can see, on the first one, the people who crammed, they did pretty good. But then if we look at a week later from the material, they hadn't seen the material, they hadn't seen anything. A week later, as you can see, the students who took the pre-test had a better average. Again, with this same graph, they were told to study for a period of time, study. Then they took the real test. And then another group of students were told to study and then take 3 pre-tests, right? And after 5 minutes, okay, the students who just studied, they did pretty well again. But then a week later, they did the worst. How many of us remember the sermon that we heard 2 weeks ago? So nobody. Nobody remembers. So a habit that we can start to form is after each sermon or after each topic or after each study class that we take, we should spend the last couple minutes to try to write down all that we remember, all that you know. If you took notes, try not to look at your notes. Just retrieve all that information out. Recalling what you have learned causes your brain to reconsolidate the memory, which strengthens its connections to what you already know and makes it easier for you to recall in the future. In effect, retrieval testing interrupts forgetting. And to finish, I want to leave you with this quote that I learned at GYC, which y'all should go to next year. It's in Orlando. In Desire of Ages, page 83. It would be well for us to spend a thoughtful hour each day in contemplation of the life of Christ. We should take it point by point and let the imagination grasp each scene, especially the closing ones. As we thus dwell upon his great sacrifice for us, our confidence in him will be more constant, our love will be quickened, and we shall be more deeply imbued with his Spirit. If we would be saved at last, we must learn the lesson of penitence and humiliation at the foot of the cross. When people typically quote this section to me, it's typically, spend an hour in your morning devotion, spend an hour with Christ at least once a day. And yes, you should. I definitely recommend. I think that hour in the morning with Christ, it's so amazing. I love it. But also do exactly as the quote says. We need to spend at least once a day, an hour a day, thinking of that cross, retrieving that image of Christ on the cross, because a blameless, sinless man died for you and I. And to think that days go by and we don't even think of that cross, we don't even acknowledge what our Christ did for us. Acknowledging doesn't mean looking at that cross that you hung up in your living room. It doesn't mean that cross that you wear around your neck. It doesn't mean that verse that you have as your wallpaper. It means to genuinely think about the last moments that Christ lived, where he couldn't even breathe and he was thinking about you and I. So, to summarize, at the end of today's sermon, I definitely recommend you guys to write down all that you remember so that it can stick in your brain long distance? Wait. Long term. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so nervous. I'm so sorry. Yes. Thank you so much.